you're my experiment. This is the first day. It's my first event, for this book, and I haven't really been thinking about it too much, about the book. I mean, I think about the book, but I don't really think about reading the book to people, because, it's kind of an intense, book, but, I mean, that's what fiction's supposed to be, I guess, I mean, I don't know. Anyway, the story, I mean, is in the title. Debbie doesn't do it anymore. And, only college professors ask me, what is it she doesn't do? It's funny. It's funny, really. College professors, and what doesn't she do? And I go, you're kidding me, right? No, I'm not kidding. So, but anyway, but after the first 4 pages, Debbie doesn't have sex anymore in this book. She sometimes remembers it, but she doesn't remember it fondly. And I want to read the beginning, because the first 4 pages before she stops having sex, because for her, it's not like sex. This is like not an erotic novel. This is like not a novel to get you excited about sex. And it's important, it seems to me, to understand how she looks at things and how she's experiencing things, and what these things mean to her. So I'm going to read the first. I think it's like 4 pages. Yeah, it's like 4 pages. So I actually get even beyond where she's quit. I was reclining on my backside, thighs spread wide open. The smell of flower-scented lubricant filled the air, and hot lights burned down on my sweat-slick black skin. Blubbery and pink-skinned Myron Big Dick Palmer was slamming his thing into me, saying, "Oh, baby, yeah, baby, Daddy's coming home. He's almost there, almost there." There were 2 high-def video cameramen working us, one moving from face to face while the other focused on our genitals. The still photographer was Carmen Aaliyah from Brazil. The recycling hum of her digital camera buzzed around us like a hungry horsefly circling an open wound. "More passion," Linda Love, the director, yelled. She was talking to me. Myron always had the same passion in any sex scene, because he closed his eyes and imagined that he was with Nora Brathwaite, his high school sweetheart. She had never let him go all the way, and every sex scene he did was dedicated to wiping out that humiliation from his heart. Luckily for me, Myron's size pushed his thing against a sore spot deep inside. So when Linda called for more feeling, I stopped thinking about the details of the shoot and began to concentrate on how much he was hurting me with his attempt to penetrate all the way back to adolescence. I allowed the pain to show in my face with each stabbing lunge. "That's better," Linda said. "Almost there," Myron moaned for what seemed like the 100th time. The grunting meant that he was about to orgasm. I knew it. Myron knew it, and worst of all, Linda was aware of what was coming, so to speak. Within the next 6 seconds, she'd cry, "On your knees, Debbie," and I'd have to jump down while looking up into the bright lights as Myron Big Dick ejaculated on my face and breasts. That was the money shot. The reason I woke up at 5 a.m., spent hours doing makeup and hair, toes and fingers. It was the reason I capped my front teeth and had breast implants, worked out 2 hours a day, 5 days a week with the trainer to the stars, Efron Fuentes, and shaved my pussy more often than my husband shaved his chin. The money shot was not only my paycheck, but also the salary of every grip, cameraman, makeup artist, and gopher in the room. Our reason for living would spout from Myron's big pink dick. This was no revelation. I had experienced thousands of ejaculations from men of every color, size, and nationality. I had been spouted upon in Moscow, Kingston, Paris, and Johannesburg. This was my job. The only thing I worried about was keeping the acrid stuff out my eyes. I was preparing to slide down from the sofa onto my knees when something amazing happened. Myron grunted, and Carmen switched to a double flash setting. Linda cried, "Debbie!" And Myron plunged up against that one spot in my entire sex that still had sensation. I could feel a blast from the air conditioner and the crusty fabric of the sofa where we teetered. Me on my back wearing only leopard print high heels, and Myron on his knees thrusting. And then, completely unbidden, I imagined a tall, olive-skinned man with intense eyes standing in the corner of the crowded room. I knew this man but could not name him. I was moving toward him, and at the same time I was being stalked by the most powerful orgasm that I had ever experienced. The faster I moved, the closer the feeling came, until suddenly I was bucking and screaming, begging for more. "On your knees," Linda shouted, but I was way beyond taking orders from her. I could feel my nipples getting so tight that they seemed to be pinching themselves, and I felt the full weight of the experience of every one of my 31 years. Myron pushed me off the red sofa and onto the floor. He stood up, drizzling his semen on me while I jerked around like a mackerel just landed on a day boat off San Pedro. I wanted to stop, but the orgasm was relentless, like a series of storm-driven waves crashing down on the shore. The only option open to me was to let go of consciousness, while Linda and her producers tried to figure out a way to save the shot and all of our paychecks. I woke up in what was once the nursery of the Bel Air mansion. The owner of the house had been a movie producer for one of the big studios until his star waned. He foolishly mortgaged his house to finance his girlfriend's film, Fun for Fauna. The movie didn't even make it to DVD, and now the owner, Sherman Pettigrew, rented this place for porno shoots whenever he could. Sherman lived in a trailer behind his ex-girlfriend's new beau's house in Topanga Canyon. Anyway, I came awake on a daybed in the barren nursery of the failed movie producer's house, stillborn into wakefulness after wasting what seemed like the last iota of passion in my life. "You okay?" a soft voice asked. I raised my head and saw Lana Lear sitting on a pink wicker chair. She was very polite, very white, with hair short as a new recruit's buzz cut. "I passed out," I said. "Yeah, it's so embarrassing." Lana giggled and then she laughed. "What's so funny?" I asked, even though I knew the answer. "I don't mean to make fun, Deb, but it's kind of silly for a woman who's had sex with 5 men at once to be shy about an orgasm." "Where is everybody?" "They left. Lana asked me to stay and make sure that you were all right, but I would have stayed anyway." I realized that it was dark outside. When I shifted into bed, I felt the long-lasting, slick lubricant between my thighs. How long was I out? A long time. Was Linda mad? "No, Myron really saved the day. You look good with him standing over you like that. It looked real." "I have to get home, Lana," I said, trying to gather the strength to sit upright. "Has anybody heard from my husband?" Linda reached out. Oh, yeah, it says Linda, but it should be Lana. Lana reached out and took my hands. She remained steady, and I was able to pull myself up. "No, I called the house, but I only got the service. Thanks for staying with me. I remember once in Jamaica, that dickhead Lester Foley got me high and left me out on the hut in the beach with no clothes at all. Let's get you cleaned up," the diminutive personal assistant said. That's enough.
So how did you land on this name for the book? I mean, how like, you know.
It's really the other way around, right? I thought of the name. I thought one day I don't know what I was thinking, but I said, you know, Debbie doesn't do it anymore. I was talking to somebody. And I went, wow, that's a great title. I should write a book with that title. And so the title started the book, not the other way around.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That wasn't a long answer, you know. You're supposed to have long answers in between.
Okay, I know that. I'll try to get long answers. I'll do filler.
And maybe this is the second part of that. How did you, you have great names in your books, you know, Ptolemy Gray, and, you know, I have a cousin called Theon.
Oh, you do?
Yes,
that's
in
nice.
Jamaica, like urban, like, you know, you wouldn't think he would be called that, but he was, and it's a very strange name. And
Theon is Debbie's husband in the book.
And his last name, tell them.
Oh God, I forgot his last name. What is his last name? Pinckney. Yeah, Theon Pinckney, right?
Like how do you come up with these names? I have like a list here. It's like you know, Kip Reinhardt and Rash Vineland.
Ah, that was a good name.
And Chaz Mintoff. Like Mouse. Like how do you? It sounds like there's, you know.
Well, you know, like there's a double thing. It's being black and Southern black and just Southern, because black, the people in the South have funny names. They just give names like they just like kind of make them up, and black people kind of do too. And it's funny because names help you remember people and know people, and I think partially it's because I read comic books a lot, and they always give names, like that they feel will, often they give names so they'll remember them, so they'll be able to use them again and again. Otherwise, if the names are too kind of normal, they kind of fall out. But especially in this business, there's a lot of people with funny names.
I thought you wouldn't surprise me because this is like about the sex industry. You have all kinds of people with all kinds of crazy names already. I mean, if any of you have watched, as we say in Jamaica, a blue movie. None of you are nodding because you are all ashamed.
Because they've watched them, but they don't want you to know about it. Yeah.
Right.
I can see in their eyes.
But
little twinkles.
But it's already like crazy that they have these names. But you still surprise me in this book with the names. It's one of the things when I read your books. Do you live with these names? Do you have them in your head?
I think they're in my head. Well, this that long argument that we have about, not argument, but discussion we have about writing, that my understanding is that you should write every day. If you write every day, no breaks, no stops, you get to places in your unconscious that you're unaware of, and things come out. Situations, events, names. They just do, like this guy Rash. He's like, his brother and sister is like Mary and Tom, but for some reason his parents named him Rash, and and he doesn't understand it, and but it actually, the name fits him. He is kind of a rash guy, and Debbie is Debbie Dare is not such a and nothing about her is outstanding, but their name, you like good powerful names to hold on to when you're reading about things, and the thing I give up, it's fiction, like a lot of people say, well, people don't have names like that. Well, number one, they do. People have crazy names, and number two, well, it's not, I'm not like, this is not nonfiction, or this is not like, going to work, and meeting your boss, or meeting your desk mate. This is fiction. These are things that you're supposed to be, experiencing and enjoying, and it's supposed to have an impact on you. And so having names are part of that.
How did you go about researching this book?
Researching?
Yeah.
I never do research. You know that. I don't research. A lot of people, there are a lot of things that people ask you questions in life, and you and you give the wrong answers. I remember once I was on a radio show. I didn't realize it was some kind of like anti-drug religious show, and they said, did you when you were in high school, did you try marijuana? And I went, well, yes. And they said, well, how did that affect your schoolwork? I had never thought of this before, so I thought, and I went, well, before I smoked dope, I was a C student. And after, I was an A student. And they got so mad at me. It was like, wow, I'm really mad at you. You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say. Also, people say in order to write, you have to read. It's another thing I don't believe, It's like, how did Homer was blind. He couldn't be reading, It's like, the notion that you have to, I love reading. I love writing. I just don't think that they're necessarily connected. And, and people get really mad at that. My answers are always, like a little off. I don't research. I never research. I have seen blue movies before, but I have seen them, and I have opinions about them, and I find it very interesting, because it's such a big industry, and it has been, for like 10,000 years, like people have been like doing like certain elements of pornography ever since caveman. I have this thing at my house of picture, pornographic caveman pictures, and like they would put them on their walls, and they did more of that than anything else, like they say, oh, look at this and look at her, and ha-ha, because that's what you think about, especially when you're a caveman and you die at the age of 19, that's probably all you ever thought about was like, sex. And And so, and I just find it so interesting because it's such a major part of our culture, and at this point, a major part of our economy. And the book is about how people look down, on and are kind of like repulsed by in certain ways the people who perform. And this is including the people who perform. They also have that bad feelings about themselves, about using sexuality in such a way, and and having all these kind of regular middle class American dreams.
How do you I thought you did a pretty good job of humanizing the characters who were themselves involved in working in the industry. And it makes even the most the most kind of jaded of us kind of either blush, or we have very strong feelings about pornography, whether it's like it's horrible and it should never be on a screen, or whatever, or I'm repulsed by it, or it makes me embarrassed, or whatever. How did you, there's a way that I didn't find any judgment in it about it, but at the same time I could see how there were so many victims of that industry.
Well, yeah, the industry is really tough on you. My life is like really backwards. It's always been really backwards. I wrote R.L.'s Dream. In R.L.'s Dream, there was a juke joint. And in the juke joint, there was a place where they played music. There was also a barber. There was a one-eyed cat, because the cat had one eye clawed out because it had been fighting. And there was a train going by. I just wrote that, I'd never been to Mississippi in my life. But once I wrote the novel, CBS wanted to do like a little Sunday morning thing on me, so they took me to Mississippi, and they found a juke joint, and we went to the juke joint. And there was a juke joint where they played the music. There was a guy who was a barber who worked in the juke joint. He has a little room where he's cutting somebody's hair. A cat walked by with one eye missing, and a train was going by, like blowing its whistle, And I went, wow, this is weird, because I wrote this, but I didn't expect to be here. The same thing is the other day I was going to L.A. and I got on I was coming back from L.A. to New Jersey, and in New Jersey there's a big porn convention every year, and that porn convention happened to be the next day, so the plane was filled with porn actresses, filled with them. Embarrassingly, I recognized a couple of them. I said, "Oh, look, Misty Stone." But I sat next to a woman, she was a very big woman, and she was like, she was a specialist porn actress. She'd like big woman, porn actress woman, and she was also an editor, and she did some other stuff. And we had this long talk, she talked to me about her boyfriend who, he was also in the industry, but he was very depressed, and she was thinking that she had to break up with him. And she was talking about her life, and she was talking about what she was doing, and she was trying to feel good about herself. But at the same time, she was saying that she really couldn't talk to the people that she used to know because they wouldn't accept her. And it was, but she seemed like a perfectly fine person. It wasn't like she was angry or mad or like trying to do something with sex that was uncomfortable, at least while we were sitting there in the plane, and it was like, and it really felt a lot like my book. I was like, wow, this is cool. But it's, I think that what writers are supposed to do is they're supposed to imagine things, and the things that you imagine, people who read it are supposed to believe it. I'm supposed to imagine it. You're supposed to believe it. The idea that it's supposed to be real doesn't really come into the equation, I don't think.
In many of your books, or most of your books, I should say, all of the ones I've read, you've dealt with love. And love between two people. Most times romantic. There's some kind of romantic love story. In this one, you had an interesting. It felt like a love triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Between who?
Between Jude. And Debbie.
Yeah, and Theon. Yeah.
There was this interesting, and between Debbie and her husband, there's kind of very little little of the, you know, kind of like exciting sexual
No.
stuff, you know, and even less so than those of you who happen to be in like 30-year relationships. Like, so there's this interesting way that you dealt with love. How did you deal with the love story between? Because I felt like she loved him.
Theon.
Yes.
Yeah, she loved Theon. Yeah.
But
and so does Jude. Jude loves Theon. But Theon's dead. I mean, Theon dies. If you let me go another page, Theon would have been dead. And you know, and which is why she quits the industry. I mean, first the orgasm and then the death of her husband with the 16-year-old girl in a bathtub. You know, it's like, okay, maybe I'll quit. You know, but the way she says it in the beginning is I think the way she feels. I loved him, I guess. I mean, that's how she feels. You know, he's because some people are just part of your life. He's known her since she was 16. He's brought her along all through, you know, the thing. He really does care about her. You know, he's lost in many ways. He's had a very hard life in many ways, and
your characters have so much backstory.
Yeah, well, don't we all? You know.
Right, but you know, like I think it's like even as I can't write fiction.
That's what you say, yes, I know. But I don't believe it, but yes.
Yeah, only because like I think that the backstory, like creating the whole backstory is so, like how do you manage to keep track? Do you have like a little grid that you keep everybody and you kind of like, okay, this one has bred here, this one had lost her mom, this one, how do you?
No, but that's the thing about writing every day in the unconscious. It's all there. It's all there. I mean, you just don't have to think about it. You just have to write it. Honestly, I mean, you don't have to think about it. If you believe
him,
she believes me.
I don't know if I could interject here, but I think you're saying your unconscious is open to the cosmos or whatever it is, for you to have that vision of Mississippi Beach.
Yeah.
Like, and for it to be exactly what you imagined is that you were open to.
Yeah.
How do you not go crazy? Like, I mean, I have like the 6 people who are in my family and the 3 people who are my friends in my head. And then I write about them all the time. You know? And I feel like, you know, I'm so stressed by their presence. But how do you manage like these 8,500 people?
But you know, you've met so many people and they've told you so many stories and so many things have happened and you just hear people on the street. I was in Harlem the other day. I love being in Harlem because I forget. I was in Harlem and of course I was supposed to be doing a talk, but I was early, so I was walking. And I was walking down the streets in Harlem. You know, the great thing about Harlem is like, you know, people are always philosophizing in Harlem. Like on the street, philosophizing. It's like, it's not like other places, you know, where people are like doing business or, you know, explaining, you know, some kind of weird egotistical thing or something. But it's just, they're like actually philosophizing. Well, you know, the ancient Egyptians said blah, blah, blah. And that's the same thing as Beyonce. Because she blah, blah, blah. You know? And it's like, yo, wow, man. The ancient Egyptians and Beyonce, that's kind of cool, you know. And it's like, you know, and you know. But I saw this one girl was walking by. She must have been like 11 or 12, and she was talking on the phone and just crying. I mean, crying. She was like talking. The phone could have been a real person. I mean, she was just crying, and talking on the phone and walking. And you know, like we all have these, like you see this stuff all the time. It's just like there's all these things happening, and you know, they kind of filter. For me, they filter their way into fiction. You know, that you know, why was she crying? Well, you know, who knows why she was crying? You know, it's like, you know, somebody insulted her, somebody died, maybe she's happy, maybe she has to move back to Tulsa. You know, who knows? But you know, you just decide on one of those things. You know, she has to move back to Tulsa. Oh shit, and that's trouble because you know her uncle's kind of weird, and you know, it's just you just go with it. That's fiction, right?
Right. So do you think women who participate in sex work, do you think that it can be in any way empowering?
I know that in Cuba, prostitution is legal and pimping is not. which I find a very interesting thing. So you want to sell your body? Fine. They want to buy your body? Fine. But you can't have any intermediary. No man or woman is going to sit there and do it, because that's capitalism. You're straightforward. That's okay. It's your body and your business. I think that, in the book, at one point, Debbie is complaining to Theon. She's complaining to him because she had to do a scene in which she was doing oral and anal sex at the same time with two guys with really big penises. And when she tells her husband, he says, "Yeah, man, when I owed that money to that gangster, he made me do that exact same scene." So I also feel that, like, when you say for women, it's also for men. And the guy said, "Well, I know you're straight, but you're gonna have to go out there and fuck these two guys, or I'm gonna break your legs." So, okay, I'm in the business. I guess I'll do that. And it's like, and sometimes I think that Debbie experienced bad things, like you do in any job that you might have, and sometimes she experienced things that were fine, that were okay, that she could deal with and work with. She tries to find, listen, capitalism works like this. They will steal every fucking iota of your life. If you do everything that you're supposed to do at work, you will die an empty husk who never did anything for yourself. That's a fact. It's just a fact. It's just true. And I think it's as true as in pornography as it is at Exxon. Nobody really cares about you. I mean, and so, the sex industry is interesting because it's so personal, so physical, but, and it's bad, but I don't know any job that's good.
Wait. How, in light of, the whole, like, sex work industry and this book, what do you think the responsibility of, I can't help but think about these missing Nigerian girls, who are headed into places that look very much like this world that you've written in the book. Not the same thing, but,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, but some of them, they're being sold or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you think the writers have a responsibility to tell those stories? Do you think,
Well, it's such an interesting thing, because of course it's really it's a crazy thing that they decided to do, to kidnap these girls, and it's crazy because whoever did it didn't realize about social media. Yeah, it's like it would have been fine, for them if they didn't. Because stuff like this has been going on in Africa forever. Mm-hmm. I've been hearing stories like this, for the last 30 years. Only now, we have Twitter and we have Facebook and we have all kinds of instantaneous information. I feel very bad for the girls, which is kidnapping and slavery. Which is something that in this book, a guy tries to enslave Debbie, and that's where she says, "No, I don't do that anymore." And she decides. She says, "I have a gun. Either I'm gonna kill him, or he's gonna kidnap me." That part is easy for me. But when you go to the further level to try to think about what's going on in Nigeria, well, this is it's kind of like the World Trade Center thing. It's like we've had two major wars in two nations for over a decade, killing millions of people over something, and that's what's going to happen in Nigeria. And that's what and a lot of innocent, quote, jihadists are going to be like, "Oh my God, people are going to come kill me with drone airplanes now because this Boko Haram did this insane thing." I think it's a very difficult thing about what happens to the entire culture when events like that happen. What happens to the entire culture? Why is the pornographic industry so successful worldwide? Why do people feel that they need to experience this? Why do they feel in some way kind of like this is the only way I can get my satisfaction? Is that I don't know.
The scene in the bathroom.
Yeah.
She's in the bath and talk about that secret.
You ever see Missouri Breaks? Anybody here? Missouri Breaks. It's an odd western starring Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando. I mean, even just to say that, it's like wild, right? Marlon Brando's an assassin. Jack Nicholson is somebody who's after. Marlon Brando's after Jack Nicholson. And so Jack Nicholson comes across Marlon Brando in a bathtub outside. No clothes, no weapons, nothing. And so Brando looks at him. And Nicholson takes out his gun. Brando said, what the fuck am I going to do? This is a man, he's pointing a gun at me. I can't get to my gun, but it's the West. So he turns his back on it. And and the old thing in the West, you can't shoot a man in the back. And so Nicholson's so pissed off, he shoots the bathtub. And the water's like coming out, but he can't shoot the man. And he finally leaves, And, so they're going to live to fight another day. In the book, there's a man who's, I have to say, at one moment I was talking to my editor. I gave the editor my book, and he gave it back to me. And he said, the big note I have is I don't like any of the men in this book. And I went, wow, that means I've succeeded. Because it's from this woman's point of view. You really shouldn't think of the men the way men think of men. You should think of them the way she thinks of you. And she doesn't think of you in that kind of positive way that you might want to think. Anyway, there's a bully, a leg breaker, a loan shark in the book, who her husband owed money. And he comes on her in the bathtub with a gun. His name is Richard, but she calls him Dick. And she says, hey, Dick. She's just sitting in her bathtub. And he says, either you're going to pay me or I'm going to kill you. And she said, well, I'm not going to pay you. And he shoots, but he doesn't hit her, hits the wall. And she says, you missed, Dick. You should probably get a little closer to the bowl, And he gets a little closer and he keeps shooting, but he can't kill her. He's a coward. He can't kill her. And she doesn't care. She'll be happy to be dead. For me, that was when you start about the difference between strengths of men and women, because real strength is bravery. It's not that you can beat somebody up. That's like talent, to be able to beat somebody up. But courage is to be able to stand up against somebody who can kick your ass, That's like that, the Captain America, in the beginning where he's the little, 90-pound weakling and people just kick the shit out of him all the time, but he just keeps coming back because he believes in what he believes in. This is the thing, and this is who Debbie is. She has made a definite decision that I'm not doing that anymore, and you can't make me. And it's true, they can't.
Most book lovers, how are we doing for time? Last questions and then we open it up. So, when I was writing my book, you gave me a dictaphone. Because I was like, oh, I can't write anymore. And you're like, well, you should try another way to write. And then, you should speak it or, listen to it out loud or whatever. And I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, I am a serious writer. Serious writers write on paper. Just like talk into a tape or whatever. And you're also one of the, like, you've got all this technology. You like technology for writing and now books are you have imprints now that do not do hardcover books. So we're kind of like inching towards less and less printed books and more ebooks. And most writers, Derek Walcott doesn't even. He still writes on a typewriter and on a legal pad. And he's very dismissive, when he says, like, what if you lose the computer and then you lose the whole thing? I'm like, what if you lose your house burns down? But you're very you're not anti-digital, you're not anti-electronics and all of that. Do you think we'll lose something terrible and it'll be horrible? Don't you think, I should say, if we go to just the digital and we lose the pages and turning?
First to say about Derek. One thing about Derek one day, he said, we lived in the same apartment building, and I know, or at least knew Harry Belafonte, and he said, I want to have dinner with Harry Belafonte. I said, fine, we'll have dinner. So we set up, we had dinner. The first thing that he saw Harry Belafonte, the first thing he said to him, he went, Dale. And now, I just want to tell you, he heard that on a record. He didn't hear Harry sing it somewhere. He heard it on a record. I mean, like he doesn't believe in electronics. Bullshit. But anyway. Look, I mean, I'm imagining a genius child living deep, not in the Harlem hood, but in the East New York hood,
Right.
who would read every book you put in front of him, but there's no books to put in front of him. He could get on his little telephone and download 10,000 books for free. Because there's all these books, Mark Twain, Balzac, just thousands and thousands of books, stories that he or she could read for free. That's like fantastic, because what that is the dissemination of information. I write books, I write so many books. Like, for instance, those people who publish paper books, they won't publish like more than 2 books a year. They don't want to publish 2, but they will do that. And I write 3 or 4 books a year. So at least 1 book a year I publish as an ebook, at least. Every 6 months I publish an ebook, because that's, because you can get it out there. As a writer, on that book I get between 10 and 15%. On the ebook I get 50. So like, I mean, there's like all these reasons to do it. The Poor Little Kid in East New York. Also, my pocketbook, it's nice. Also that that it's not a book, because when you write a book and you put it in a bookstore, not a bookstore like this, but like New Book Bookstore, it only has a certain amount of time on the shelf. It's kind of like milk, So it's past the due date. Got to throw it away and put some more milk up there, So I don't have anything against electronics or electronic books or stuff like that. I know when like you go traveling, if there's 10 books you're reading, it's easier to carry them on your little like thing than than it is to carry them in the bag along with your child and whatever else you got to bring along. So no, I don't have anything against it.
Perfect. This might be a good time to open up the floor to audience questions. Does anybody have a question for Walter this evening about this book or previous books?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm actually gonna just so everybody can hear you.
So my question is about your productivity and how all those different characters kind of live within you, as I imagine you're writing multiple projects at once. How does that kind of work for you, being so productive and writing 3 or 4 books a year and being in a certain place with each book or character? Is that ever conflicted for you, or is that just about compartmentalizing?
When you say conflicted, what do you mean?
So I imagine you have different characters who inhabit different worlds in each story.
Yeah.
And do they ever, I guess, infringe upon each other if you're working on multiple projects at once?
Well, I only work on one project at a time. I mean, honestly, but it works like this. I'm writing. Let's say I just turned in an Easy Rawlins novel. Today, actually. So I work on that until it's finished, and I turn it in. But I write every day, so today is like Tuesday, so Wednesday I'm going to be writing on another book. And so I write on that book until the Easy Rawlins novel comes back. Then I stop on this book and I go back to Easy. But whatever I'm working on, I keep working on that in long periods of time, many days in a row. And I don't think about any other book while I'm doing that. I just think about that book itself. And so I don't have a problem. And the fact of writing every day, the more you write every day, the more access you have to those creative places that want to find their way to the page. And so you write more and more. And but no, I've never had that problem. But I don't have identity. I was telling people the other day that I guess in Harlem at the Schomburg, I was talking to California Cooper. California Cooper, I love her. But she's so crazy. I mean, in my opinion, she's like, you like that story? And I go, yes, ma'am. This was like when I was very early in my career, and I said, yes, ma'am, I did. And she said, you know who told me that story? I said, no. And she goes, a tree told me that story. A tree in my backyard told me that story. But I got a story that you like even better. A cloud told me that story. It told me the story while I was passing by on a wind. You know how like you try not to look at somebody in the eye when you think they're crazy because they might kill you. But anyway, I love her, but I'm not like that. Like I don't feel the stories are all coming from here somewhere, and as long as I'm concentrating on one story at a time, it's fine.
That's some really good self-discipline.
Thank you.
Enormous.
Is Debbie your first female perspective?
The first novel that I've written. I've written a couple of short stories from women's point of view, but never a novel.
So how is it qualitatively different than a man's voice?
Well, I'm not sure it's qualitative, because everybody's voice is different. One of the things that you decide, everybody is pretty much the same, right? We all eat and drink, feel heat, get old. You know, there are all these things that we have that are the same. And then there are very small but very important parts in which we're different, you know. But the difference between Easy and Mouse is that, you know. Mouse is, well, I'll kill the motherfucker, and Easy's not quite like that, you know. You say, well, kill him? Nah. You know, when I was writing from her point of view, all I had to do is I decided who she was, and I started writing from that point of view, which is why I started from this scene. You know, here's a woman having sex. Now, you know, like, you know, when guys write about women having sex, it always sounds really sexy. You know, it's like, oh my God, it was this. You know, they don't talk about smells. They don't talk about, you know, they don't talk about, you know, the air conditioner coming out, the crustiness of this guy with this big dick, which I'm not really enjoying, and the pain that I'm feeling inside, and this other woman telling me I should be enjoying it. You know, once I understood that she was that what I had to do was not, and put this in quote, idealize her. The way like that men often do, or that women often do, you know, to the opposite sex, and to say these are the experiences that she's having, and this is how she's having them. And I think the thing that my editor said, which was very good, how she sees men and how she sees other women, I think that is qualitatively different. You know, and how she has to deal with them is qualitatively different. And I think in that, hopefully I made her character, you know. I'm going to have trouble with that, of course. I know people are going to get mad at me, but, you know, it's okay.
Any other questions out there this evening?
Thoughts, notions, ideas, minor criticisms?
The last one out here.
Yeah, I read all your stuff. And I read this book, but I had to think about your other book, Killing Johnny Fry.
Oh, yeah. The really erotic book.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I saw this book, I was thinking like, oh, it's going to be like Killing Johnny Fry, but I found that it wasn't. Yeah. You know, and I heard you say you don't do any research. So when you wrote this book, did you think about that Killing Johnny Fry at all, or you know, like was it something that you wanted to explore more that you didn't with Killing Johnny Fry, that you as the reason to write in this book?
No, I didn't. You're right. It's how you think about it, not researching about how you think about it. I didn't think about Killing Johnny Fry because Killing Johnny Fry is really an erotic novel. I mean, it's about an existentialist erotic novel, a guy finding himself through sexuality. You know, and so the sexuality is, you know, this powerful feeling. You know, and the thing that's different about it, it's not him imagining his impact on these women, but actually their impact on him, which is, you know, just a slight change. But but you think about it. You know, I was walking down the street with a movie star one day, a movie star. We're walking down the street, and with 4 or 5 of us are together, and there's one guy, and a woman sees the movie star, and she goes, "Whoa!" And she goes, "Are you so and so?" And he goes, "Yes, I am." She puts out her hand, and he shakes the hand. Then she grabs the hand with his other hand, and we're all standing. And she looks him in the eye and she goes, "You want to come up to my house for some lunch?" And he smiles, and he's nice. He said, "Well, you know, honey, I'm having lunch with my friends. We're going out." She goes, "You got to eat," she said. And I thought, wow, you know, I really wouldn't like this. You know, I think I would like this, but if I'm walking down the street and people are grabbing me by the hand and say, "You want to come up to my house for some lunch?" You know, maybe a couple of times, but you know, like, after a while, it's like, wow, man, no, I want to, you know, go home and, you know, watch some television and go to sleep, you know, have a beer, you know, and, yep, and you imagine somebody doing Debbie's job. This is like, you know, what are you gonna do? Well, you're gonna be fucking all day long. You're gonna be that's how you're gonna do it. And how are you gonna? Well, then first you have to fuck, and then you can't do it, you know, too hard. You can't do it too soft, and then you have to make sure that he comes and that everybody sees it, and that you're pretending that you like it. So you have to keep on saying all these things that you're not feeling. But there are people, you know, there's 15 people in the room. They're taking pictures and cameras, and people are telling you what to do. You know, day after day, that's like, you know, it's a better job than McDonald's. I do believe that, but because you get paid better. You know, like, but the notion of like doing that day after day, it's not it's not erotic. So, wow, this is going to be erotic today, man. I'm going to see a guy with a 25-inch dick, you know. No, that's not erotic, you know. You know, once in your life maybe, but, you know, every day, no, that's a hard thing. And it's not for men either. I mean, you know, it's like, well, I got to take 5 Viagra's today. I'm going to be working all day long, you know. And so that's what I was thinking about what I would feel like if I was doing that job. And that job, you know, seems like hard work that you might get paid for, but nobody really likes you for it. You know, they don't like you for doing the job. They just, you know, no more than they like you the way if you serve their food, they don't really care about you. You know, even though you do your best to, you know, be there for them. You know. And you had a question also, or you didn't?
I did, but it's maybe superficial.
I like superficial.
Yeah, I think I'm talk loud enough, eh?
Yes, we can hear you.
So why did you decide to give her blue eyes, blonde hair? I guess I could understand the red lips, exotic, black skin.
That's not shallow, that question. That's not superfluous. Debbie, when she starts her career, decides that she's going to be the most recognizable woman in pornography. She's going to be like, you know, Sika or Marilyn Chambers, like the old school people. And she decides she's 6 feet tall. She has jet black skin. Well, okay, fine. She's going to have platinum hair down to her butt and blue eyes and a tiny little tattoo under this. You know, it's really just a stain, but everybody thinks it's a tattoo under this eye. Nobody's going to forget her. Everybody's going to remember her. You know, like, and that is going to make her career, and it did. She became the most recognizable person in porn. Driving down the street, people recognized. People saw her. People knew who she was. People, you know, and if it made her wealthy, made her rich. That's why she did it. I mean, it's just it's the job. It's what they call branding. You know, she branded herself. You know.
Last.
Oh, my question just has to do with you in terms of writing. It's funny because we were talking about the whole celebrity of the porn industry. Do you find your popularity or celebrity over the years interferes with your art? How do you deal with that?
That's an interesting question. How would it?
Just from the point of view of expectation of yourself, and how when people talk about when you use cliche phrases like believe in the hype for yourself, or I'm really asking, do you find a way to like get out of the place?
Well, and
space for yourself.
That's a really good question, and I have an answer which is kind of an odd one, but I think it's really it's very clear. I didn't start writing until I was 34. I didn't get published until I was 38. So in essence, I was already a failure when I started writing. And so, I felt like I was a failure. I didn't feel bad, because other people are successful. People are like, they're famous, they're sports heroes, they're movie stars, they're scientists. They invented things. I was just going from place. I had a job, I made some money, I paid my rent. So but as far as the greater culture, I was a failure. And once you're a failure, the great thing about being a failure, you're always a failure. That never goes away. You're always a failure. And so being successful as a writer didn't mean a lot to me. I mean, it meant I was like, wow, this is great. I could get some money. I don't have to go back to that stupid job. I could do this, I could do that. But I didn't feel like a lot of young people I know this. They actually think that they're great. They're famous, wonderful. I did this. I wrote this book. And like it's like, come on, man. It's that dude who owns the team, the basketball team in LA is more famous than you. And he ain't done nothing. But like it's like the idea that because I think that you're right. It's other people don't impact you. It's how you impact yourself. Another guy I knew, another movie star, but I can tell you his name because he's dead, is Gregory Hines. We used to know each other in West Village. We would walk across the town together. Everybody knew Gregory. Everybody wanted to stop to talk to Gregory. Everything, and we walked maybe about 5 blocks and talked to really 50 people. And I said, Gregory, how do you stand? He said, Walter, you just keep on moving. You just keep on walking. Whatever they want. They want you to sign something. They want you to talk about something. They want to kiss your baby. Whatever it is, you do it, but you just keep on walking. Because you're going someplace. If they want to follow you, that's fine, but you never stop. Never stop. And I went, wow, man, that's cool. He was great. He was a great man, you know. He was a great man.
Wonderful. Well, that's about all the time we have for this evening. Thank you so much, Walter and Staceyann, for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Staceyann.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming out as well.
Everybody should buy a book, and buy a book for your
Absolutely.
mother, and buy a book for your uncle, and you know,
And all your friends.
Favorite porn actress.
Yeah.
and send it to her office.
Yeah.
But we'll
Her post office box.
we'll set Walter up at the table just behind me in a few moments so we get some books signed and ask some more questions. Take care.
Good.